Coming up on this episode of the Elite Recruiter Podcast.
When I branched off and started my own, and if anyone's looking to do the same, you just got to start with a good client. You just have to do a lot of sales calls. You really have to know your industry. So I was studying up on architecture and civil engineering, just things I knew nothing about. If you're sitting there wondering, like, is now the time? It probably is, and just plan accordingly.
Welcome to the Elite Recruiter Podcast with your host, Benjamin Mena, where we focus on what it takes to win in the recruiting game. We cover it all from sales, marketing, mindset, money, leadership, and placements.
Admin is a massive waste of time. That's why there's Atlas, the AI-first recruitment platform built for modern agencies. It doesn't only track resumes and calls. It remembers everything, every email, every interview, every conversation, instantly searchable, always available. And now it's entering a whole new era. With Atlas 2.0, you can ask anything and it delivers. With Magic Search, you speak and it listens. It finds the right candidates using real conversations, not simply looking for keywords. Atlas 2.0 also makes business development easier than ever. With opportunities, you can track, manage, and grow client relationships powered by generative AI and built right into your workflow. Need insights? Custom dashboards give you total visibility over your pipeline. And that's not theory. Atlas customers have reported up to 41% EBITDA growth and an 85% increase in monthly billings after adopting the platform. No admin, no silos, no lost info, nothing but faster shortlists, better hires, and more time to focus on what actually drives revenue. Atlas is your personal AI partner for modern recruiting. Don't miss the future of recruitment. Get started with Atlas today and unlock your exclusive listener offer at recruitwithatlas.com.
I'm so excited about this episode of the Elite Recruiter Podcast because here's one of those things. In your recruiting career, you constantly have to make decisions about what you want to do and how you want to move forward. Here's the thing. You've been sitting in the chair as a recruiter doing this for 10 to 15 years. And for many of us, we are sitting in the same chair that we started our recruiting career at. And it's one of those things, like, we have to make a decision. Do you go all in with where you're at and the career that you have there? Or is it time to check something else out? Is it time to check and see if that grass is greener on the other side of the fence? What other opportunities are out there? I know it's one of the things that, looking back early in my career, that it took me, unfortunately, 2 years to hit that point. But man, I know I was surrounded with people at that company that have spent 15, 16, 17 years, and they were absolutely happy with where it was. But when you're working at an agency, you need to figure out what's best for you. So we're going to talk about all these different options and really just work through, just answer some of the questions that I wish I had when I worked at this giant agency. That's what I'm so excited to have my guest on today, Zack Cress, to kind of share the routes that you could possibly take and the routes that he took. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'll give you a quick 30-second overview, and then I'm sure we'll dive into it. But spent 14 years at large corporate agencies. Started, I'll just Aerotech. I'll give them a quick plug there. Spent time in leadership, and then after 14 years, decided to branch off and start my own. Doing similar to what a lot of people that you have on. We're launching our own independent, and it's going really well. So yeah, just excited to talk through that.
And you've also helped 12 companies also get started too?
Yeah, so I guess I can get into the quick backstory there. So again, spent 14 years at a large organization, so was in multiple markets and built my network pretty strong. And after that amount of time, just realized, moving for the company, doing so much, giving so much back, it just started to where I was done chasing the carrot of corporate environment. And I decided that, it's time to branch out and start my own. So obviously that picked up some steam, and then people in my network after I left had been reaching out asking me, how do I do it? Where do I start? What is a website domain host? How do I even go about doing this? I've always had a passion for helping people. That's why I got in the roles that I did. So it was fun. As I was launching this thing solo, it was fun fielding calls and helping people out. And it took it from there. So I recognized an opportunity that these people that are trying to launch, they need help doing so. So then one of my mentors, as I was getting my recruiting firm launched, is now my co-founder of Catalyst. But I was calling him, asking him these same questions. So it just kind of made some sense. Hey, let's formalize this and help out as many people as we can launch. So yeah, there's about 12 people informally that that I helped throughout that time get off the ground in different ways. How do I design a website? Can you look at my contracts? Who do I go for legal advice? And then decide to formalize it. So that's kind of the backstory of Catalyst and how this got started.
That was awesome. So let's take a few steps back. How did you end up in the wonderful wild, wild west, the land of misfit toys, the recruiting chair?
So I graduated college in 2009 and I was studying economics and finance. And for those of you who have been in the market that long, that's not really a good degree to have. In 2009, there were more banks shutting down than there were hiring. So I had a buddy that had interned at this large corporation and said, hey, you can make some decent money. I did want to do sales. I had always been passionate about sales, so I did want to do that. And I'm like, yeah, I'll check him out. And what stood out to me was people and the environment and the competitive nature of it. And I just loved it. I don't know that after I went there, I don't think I interviewed anywhere else. I just loved the sales type environment of recruiting, the commission nature of recruiting, and just fell in love with it and never looked back. So here I am 16 years later, still passionate about the industry.
Okay, so you made some pretty good jumps in your recruiting career at that place. Like, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I started as a recruiter. About after a year, they asked me to go open a growing market in Ohio. So I started a new vertical. So
wait, pause right there. So you started in one place and a year later they asked you to move to another location.
Correct. Yes.
Did they pay for the reload, or did you like just have to like pack up some boxes and
both? I mean, at the time, I think I was 23. So my reload was a van. You know, I think the biggest thing I had was a couch that I probably trashed, you know, a month later. But yeah, it wasn't much of a reload, but it was one of those things where I just wanted to advance as quickly as I could. And I really wanted to give back to the company. So I moved and uprooted my life at that point and moved and started a new vertical in a growing market in Ohio. So yeah, that's how that got started.
Okay, like let's talk about that. Like you had to launch a brand new vertical. What did you do in this brand new city, brand new town, brand new industry to get off the ground so that way they could keep you?
Yeah, that's a good point. And it probably was shaky a little bit there. I'll say this, and it also holds true now when I branched off and started my own. And if anyone's looking to do the same, you just got to start with a good client. You just have to do a lot of sales calls. You really have to know your industry. So I was studying up on architecture and civil engineering, just things I knew nothing about. But you just really got to learn your industry, and then you really got to be dedicated to a process that allows you to make enough phone calls and do enough BD to develop relationships and get a client. Once you get a good client, then you need to build the database, and then you start making matches. But it takes time. Obviously, it takes time. But I would say, you know, when I moved there, it was very similar situation from when I or if somebody else were to launch. It's like you got to get a good client, you got to drive some revenue. And then from there, just work really hard to make a placement and figure it out.
And then, you know, you were there for a bit and you got another promotion.
Yeah. So I was there for 6 years maybe, and I really wanted to give back. So I was promoting my team members that I was working with, splitting my territory up, just making sure that I was giving back to everybody else. And yeah, I got offered an opportunity. They asked me to move to Maryland and run an operation there. So it was a good promotional opportunity for me. Moved again further out east, which I had never really been. So both moves, I'd never been, hardly been to those cities. And it's like, all right, I guess we're going. But yeah, took another promotion to go out and run a market out east. So it was a good opportunity as well.
Okay. So, and then you got another promotion and made another move. Like, did you ever just want to stay in one spot?
I'm from the Midwest, so the goal was always to kind of loop back, which I did. So it was a promotion, if you will, moving back, but it was also getting one back. You know, we started having kids, and we wanted to be by a family and support structure. So getting back to the Midwest was always a thing. So that was a mutual good transaction for me and the company. But yeah, third move, all the way back, full circle, back to the Midwest. I did at certain times want to just stay there, but it just never ended up happening. You know, it was always like, it was a good opportunity and we're in the right family situation to do it. So my wife's obviously, a huge part of those conversations. And she thankfully was on board for the entire thing.
I will say Illinois is probably a little cheaper than the DC Metro.
You trade home values for taxes, if that makes sense. So
okay.
up being kind of a wash, but your taxes go up and whatever.
So you climbed the corporate ladder at a recruiting agency. For somebody that wants to do that, and that's their goal, what is some of the best advice that you could give them to do that?
I think it's just giving back to it. And again, I think this goes for entrepreneurs as well. It's just treating your people like gold, because they are. I mean, that's really what gets an agency up and running and gets a team successful, is just leaving it all out on the field for your team, making sure they're developed and making sure that they know what they're doing and they're set up to win each day and they're consistent. And you hit them when they need to be hit, and you love them when they need to be loved. You just got to go all in on the relationship aspect of your team, because if they're not successful, you'll never be successful. And if you're running an office or you're running an operation, that just gets more complicated and bigger, but it's the same thought process. So it really is not necessary. You have to report up always to leadership above you, but it really is about people that are on your team.
So what started spurring the idea for you to start looking outside of this large agency that does a really good job keeping you in a bubble?
Yeah. I would say there's two things. The first is lack of autonomy, and I'll get into that. And the second is just, I started to realize that for the first time, there's a couple incidents that happen. And for the first time, I started to think like, maybe 10 years I won't be here.
So you thought you were going to be a lifer at this organization all the way up until retirement?
Oh yeah. I mean, that was the goal. It was advance quickly, develop those around me, do as well as I could, and then retire at some point. Both my parents, who I respect greatly, my mom was a teacher and my dad worked for the government, but they were both in their jobs for their entire career. They never made a switch. And I know that's rare, but I really looked up to that. So I'm like, I'm in a great place, and why mess with it? They treat me pretty well, and why would I mess with that? So yeah, the goal was to retire until it wasn't. You asked the why. So the lack of autonomy. So there's always going to be metrics. I believe in metrics. Anybody who's successful, they need to make phone calls. It's just a part of the game. But there was one situation where you just start pushing metrics to push them a lot of times in big companies, and it doesn't really align with the market, or it takes you away from being as successful as you could be. So in this scenario, we had just come off 2 years of double-digit growth as an operation. We were driving our own metrics, but the corporate metrics, they shift every year. If you're working at a big company, you know this. It's just different things all the time. And I always said you got to put your flag and the wind's blowing around, but you got to stand your ground the best you can and also hit goal. But we had a service metric that we were one of the top in the industry. And I get a call from my leader, and they were like, hey, are you pushing concierge service? And it was concierge service. And our metrics were great in this bucket. We had a way to measure it. And I was like, yeah, we're talking about this all the time. And he's like, well, I just talked to so-and-so and we're not using the word concierge. And I was like, what do you mean the word concierge? It's like, that's the word that needs to be used, is concierge. So then I remember we had a leadership meeting, and we're sitting there like trying to figure out how to bake in this word so it trickles down without, and it had to go to the candidates too, because the candidates had to then answer questions on like, is this that kind of service? So at that point, I'm like, I think we've kind of lost the plot here on what direction we need to be going in. And that's nothing against, nothing personal or nothing against that. But when you're at a big corporation, just sometimes you're getting pushed in directions that aren't necessarily aligned with what is going to reflect in the market, right? So I just started thinking like, man, if I can't even use the right words, there really is, although I'm running this big team, there really is like some limits to the autonomy that I could have. So it just sort of made me think like, could I be doing that same conversation 10 years from now, right?
This is probably too much information, but like, were they tracking your calls to figure out how many times you said the word concierge?
No, but it was more just like a report back system where it was just verifying that singular word was being used in the office. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's just kind of like, what are we doing? Again, nothing personal, but it's like, what are we doing here?
Okay. What finally pushed your decision to, hey, what else is out there?
I could talk for a long time about the little incidents. Like that one incident is not a big deal in itself, but there's 300. And over the course of, it was probably a 4-year realization, honestly, of me just kind of one brick in the wall after the other being like, man, I just don't know. I just don't have any direction. So I need to figure out what the next step is. And this is where hopefully maybe this hits with some people out there is, you've been doing the role. I was in the role for 7 years at that point, and I didn't feel like I was learning a lot, and I didn't feel like I had autonomy. And it's like, maybe there is something better out there. Maybe this isn't it. Maybe I won't retire from here. And I always said the minute that I stopped giving 100% to my team, then it's probably time to get someone else in, because like they need that. They have to have that as a leader. You can't be checked out. I didn't know that I was going to launch my own, but I just wanted to do two things. I wanted to get out with zero impact to my team. That was my first order of business. And then figure out what was next. So I think that was the time, as I started to realize that it wasn't going to be a long-term deal, I had the conversation of, hey, I think I'm gonna hang it up. And then as I'm going through that transition, I'm getting a resume together. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm just gonna focus here first, but like, what is the next step? And this turns into maybe a technology conversation too. But when you're at these large agencies, you don't realize what's going on in the outside world from a technology standpoint or from a industry standpoint. Really, like you see some letters and some statistics, but the amount of technology, as I started researching it, you don't need that. 15 years ago, the big agencies were differentiated by their systems. They had legacy systems where there were millions of resumes, and that's how they got candidates. And nowadays, you can get access to pretty much anything, and you don't need the big corporate environments to see success as a small agency. So the more I started realizing that, I'm like, I might just give this a go. I might just do this. And that's how the whole thing got started. That was the exit plan and the startup plan, I suppose.
So we'll talk about that startup phase in a second, but I want to go back to the recruiter that's like the 10 to 15 years in their career. They might have the itch to kind of explore things, but like, let's talk about why and the benefits of actually staying where you're at. They might not have like some of the things that you had yet happen about, hey, you need to change the verbiage in a conversation. Things could be going great. Like, what are some really good reasons why somebody should stay where they're at?
It's a very comfortable lifestyle. If you've been at a big agency for 15 years, you're probably doing really well. And you're probably having a pretty good lifestyle. Maybe there's a cap on the income, like there just is, unless you have a massive account or a massive engagement. But it's a very comfortable lifestyle. You know the game, you know what you need to put in, you know what outputs you're going to get. Leadership changes a lot, but you kind of get the game a little bit. And there's a lot of benefits to being there. There's a salary, there's a commission, there's a client base that you already have. There's yearly trips. Obviously, if you're hitting President's Club every year, it's pretty much something you can bank on. And that was phenomenal with my wife and I. You can always bank on a beach trip or wherever you go as a company. So there's a lot of benefits of staying. And if you're the type of person that doesn't want to upset the professional or the family apple cart like that, it's an awesome lifestyle. So I would recommend if you don't have a high risk tolerance, that you just kind of grit through and you say, the startup thing and the small business thing is not for everybody.
Mm. And, and let me just preface this, like starting a business is not for everybody. Like,
right.
There's a lot that goes on. And I am friends with a lot of top billers that actually have had their businesses, sold their businesses so that way they can go work at an agency. Before we start like exploring some of the things that you did to get launched, I want to spend a minute or two talking about like why it might be good to go work at a smaller agency. Can you like talk about that?
Yeah, the amount I was shocked by. I fancy myself someone who just dives in and figures things out. I was pretty surprised by, because again, I left cold, no plan. A lot of people will spend months researching what an LLC is and how to file in taxes and how to designate yourself. And because I went at it a little cold, I was doing all that research after, post leaving, let's say. And it takes a lot. It's a lot of learning. It's a lot of functions that you don't even think about. Everything from logo design to bookkeeping to finding a good legal team to designing a website. And you got to maintain all those things. And then also you got to the tech stack is, on one hand, the tech stack is such a positive on what's happened over the past 10 years, but also it's a little, I'm sure you can attest to this, it's a little overwhelming, the amount of things that are out there. So I'm sitting there demoing for weeks, just demoing all the things because I wanted to get the right tech stack. It's just a lot. You can spend a lot of time doing a lot of setup, which pushes off doing the actual job, like doing what you're good at, which is recruiting and sales. So I think, to me, that was the biggest curve, was when starting, was just like the amount of time and effort and vetting and getting the whole back office team together. That to me was the hardest part.
So like for those people, it might be better just to jump into another agency with a different structure or a small team.
Yep. Yeah. And I'll say that the smaller, so if you're at a big agency, there's a certain upside. The smaller you go, there's always life cycles of an organization where the smaller the organization is when you join, the bigger your upside is going to be, but it also comes with a little more risk and a little more hat wearing. So if you are, person number 2 or 3 on a startup, you're going to be wearing a lot of different hats. You'll learn a lot, but to join a small agency, a lot of that stuff's already set up for you. They can still pay. A lot of the small mid-sized agencies are still cutting in higher commissions, let's say, because they're more flat. There could be a very good benefit in not just starting your own, but joining a mid-size, because the upside is still there for you.
Awesome. Now I want to go back to jumping into you starting your own company. And, I know this organization that you left, and I know many recruiters that have left. It's almost as if they've created billions and billions of dollars in competitors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's wild.
I think that's probably factual. I mean, it is factual. Yeah.
Like, I see the numbers and I see the stuff. So, you launching your own company, what were some of the things that you like? I know you talked about some of the focuses wasn't moving the needle, wasn't you starting your recruiting, but once you got past that, what did you have to start doing to launch your company, to actually get off the ground and get business going and put food on the table?
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to what I said before. It really just starts with business development and getting clients. That really, once I got the tech stack down, which took probably longer than it should, then it's like, okay, let's get all these clients prospected and in the system and get them in a CRM and just start engaging. So that's really step number 1. That should be the focus from the day you start, is just, do you have a good prospect list of clients that are going to buy from you, whatever niche you're in? And then are you engaging them in a high volume manner? So that's what you got to do to start.
You came in blank. How did you start that? This targeted list of like, I'm going to get these people.
Luckily, I'd done it multiple times before. So it's just define a niche, which mine was AEC, architecture, engineering, construction. And I focused on civil engineering, the civil side of that, if you know the industry, and just went through and generated a list of clients that would buy that service. And then just started engaging director level, VP level personnel there. And the service started as a high level, more executive search, let's call it 150, give or take, placements. And we're working down into that, plus also more junior engineers. But yeah, if you engage them in the right way and you have a good niche and you know what you're talking about, it shouldn't take too long, as long as you're having good conversations.
Okay. And like, looking back now, you've had your business for a bit, you've launched, you've helped some friends or some people that also get launched. What were some of the things that you wish you really knew before you jumped out the door and started building the plane on the way down?
I think I wish I would have known. I wish I would have had a team set up off the get. That's really it. Because it was, I'll tell you one example. When I started, I really wanted this to be a local business. So a small business, I wanted to give back to my community. I went to a law firm here locally, and we're just building a contract. We're just building out a direct hire contract. And I'm going back and forth with him, and I'm suggesting a bunch of things that need to be in this agreement. And he's like, oh yeah, that's good. And he's putting it in there. And I'm like, wait a minute, who's paying who here? Right. So it's like, you have to really get people that know what they're doing. And that's where that's where the time comes in, is just that. So what I wish I would have known is just the amount of vetting it would take to get all the little functions ironed out.
Okay. And then out of curiosity, what are some of the tech tools that you ended up going with? And I know tech tools change because technology and AI is insane, but what were some of the things that you're like, hey, this is what I liked?
Well, Zoom Info, although expensive, and I know there's a lot of other competitors out there, but that really was the game changer for me, because that essentially gives access to, you know, anybody in my demographic, anybody in our target market that we were calling both on the sales side and on the recruiting side. So that essentially replaced a big agency database, because we had the contact info and the cell phone info of anybody out there. So it allowed us, or me starting, to get access to the right candidates right away. So it didn't feel like we were building it from the ground up. We already had our list.
I remember that, like back in the day, like that was part of the pitch. Like we have this gigantic database, and now, like, I hate to say this, we all have the database.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all now how we actually use it.
Well, that's going to be, a sales and recruiting person since the dawn of time hasn't used the systems properly. So that's been my job forever, but you know how that goes.
Well, now actually, if you think about this legacy database of these large companies, like how up to date is it?
Yeah. It ends up being a hindrance almost, because there's so much in there that it's a lot of legacy data that you end up spending time on that isn't accurate or active. So, in a way, the companies like Zoom Info that have their database that gets refreshed all the time, it's almost a little better. I don't know.
So I know we were talking offline in our pregame, and we were talking about some of the things that recruiters don't think about when they're launching their company. And one of the things that I think is important is compliance and bookkeeping.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the compliance part first. Like, for those that are listening that are just thinking about jumping in and hustling, and all I need to do is like send out a contract, they sign it, I recruit, I fill the job, I get a check, I send it in my bank account. End of the day, we're making money, baby.
Yep.
What the hell is compliance for those people?
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a big unknown too, or a big thing that I didn't think about, was just the compliance and the taxes, and just making sure that you're filing everything properly and managing your books properly. And the thing with bookkeeping is you ask 10 different CPAs about, hey, what should I write off? What should I not write off? And you'll probably get 5 different answers on if you should or shouldn't do this. So it's one of those things where with bookkeeping, if you don't do it, obviously you're going to get fined, and maybe the government, that's extreme scenario. But on just a normal monthly maintenance, it really is a tax advantage. It's like, is our dollars going to the right place? Do we have enough money to invest in this software? Should we write this off or should we not? I have a partner. How are we doing distribution? So like, that's the part of the bookkeeping and maintenance that I think is not thought about, especially if you go into a partnership and it's not just you. It becomes very complicated quicker. So having somebody in your back pocket that you can talk to is key and crucial when it comes to that stuff.
Ooh, I want to talk about this partnership thing. Okay, so when it comes to a partnership, you just think like, hey, this is my buddy. Like we've been doing this together. We're best friends. He's a great recruiter. Is there anything else prior to this, what we're going to talk about with like the legal stuff, that you need to think about with a partner?
Yeah, I think, well, obviously, you got to make sure you structure it properly. And there's a lot of things that you need to think about just getting it up. It's almost like going into a marriage. It really is. It's like, you hope everything goes well. And I've heard my co-founder at Catalyst says this a lot, but it becomes issues when it's going really well or when it's going really not well down the line. So you got to make sure you structure it properly to handle both of those scenarios down the line. If it's going okay, you're just getting started, it's like whatever. But what if it blows up? Then that 1% difference that you put in at the beginning becomes an issue. Or maybe one person drops off and doesn't want to do it anymore. Like, what's the exit plan for that? So there's a lot of things that you need to be thinking about if you're looking to partner up with somebody. The pros, I will say, is for those of you who have launched and done independent, it's very lonely. It is nice having somebody to, ping things off of it, especially if they have complementary skills. Somebody's good at sales, somebody's good at recruiting, somebody's good at finance, somebody's good at sales. I would not shy away from partnerships. Just make sure you set it up properly.
Okay, so in a partnership, you need to have an agreement then, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then this agreement should, you don't want to look at the negatives, but should you also have an exit plan set up in that agreement?
100%. You should have plans set up for any scenario that you can think about. You should have an 8-hour session with that person and just say like, okay, what about this? Do we have language for that? What about this? And just try to take the emotion out of it. If you're going into a partnership or 2 or 3 people or whatever, just make sure they're aligned. So I would say just treat it like a marriage. And if it goes really well, how's that going to look? If it doesn't go very well, how's that going to look? I would just play that out.
Okay. And then the financial aspect and the bookkeeping of that. What?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to let you talk because you're just like shaking your head and just like, ooh.
My co-founder is more the bookkeeping expert, and so I won't try to say that I'm the total expert here. But yeah, the more people that get, in that partnership, the more you need to plan out distributions. It's not like your personal income anymore. So if you're running your own, it's kind of your own personal income. It's, yeah, I'll take this, but I want to invest that back. This is a discussion that happens with all, and all needs to be agreed upon. And you need to distribute that out in proportion with their ownership level. So everything becomes a little more complicated when you have more people.
And jumping back to the compliance thing, it's a thing that I think recruiters don't think about. Like, hey, I got to check. Like, they sign the client, whatever. Do you have to think about things on a state by state basis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every state's different. Every state has different taxes. Every state has different filing requirements for your business. And again, worst case scenario, you get some fines or whatever, but you don't want to be dealing with that. So it's good to have a team that is handling all that for you in the background. That way you don't have to worry about it. So our goal when launching Catalyst was just getting all that off everybody's plate. And it's just like, can I just focus on sales and recruiting and then not worry about the rest of the back office stuff?
You guys actually handle the bookkeeping then?
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, like I've been in the Facebook groups and I've talked to people like, hey, yeah, like, hey, somebody said that I need to pay a state tax, but I'm based here, but the placement's there, but this is my home turf. Like, I shouldn't have to pay that.
Yeah, every state's different how they operate, but it's a lot to handle, especially if especially if you don't have a financial mind, but you're really good at recruiting or you're really good at sales. It's just something I've been working around, hundreds of people in the recruiting industry, and we're not a high compliance bunch. We're just not. Like, we're salespeople and we're recruiters and we like to help people and we like to influence conversations. But when it comes to things like compliance, that is not our bag typically.
I know when we spoke in our pregame chat, you have these conversations with founders and like some of the things that you've even brought up, like, hey, why are you doing Net 30? Like, there are other things to think about. Like, what are some good highlights or good things that you've helped share that people have really helped somebody move the needle starting their business?
Yeah, I think with things like net terms, it just highlights how many little levers you can pull to make your business successful. And if you've only worked at one company, you only have one perspective of how the job should be done. I brought the net terms up as an example because let's say you're at a company who mostly does net 30, or you're in a chair and the salesperson or however, it's usually net 30. Well, did you know you could do net 7? I've talked to people that didn't even think about that. So instead of making a placement with your new business and waiting a month to get paid or more than a month, you're getting paid after a week. And some people just don't. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about tightening the net payment terms. So that's just one example of many where just having an outside coach when you're starting, having an outside perspective on different ways to do the business. And when you're talking through it, it's like, hey, what about this? What about that? It goes a really long way. So I couldn't give you all 1,000 instances, but just being able to talk through things with somebody, it's just little thing after little thing where it's like, oh, I guess I should do this. And then you're that much more successful after the fact.
Yeah, that is one of the fun things about starting. You're either like in a Facebook group, like asking things or calling up a buddy or phoning a friend or, do I actually have to hire that lawyer and talk to him? He's like $250 an hour.
What's great about the founder community, and I'm sure you've experienced this a lot, is everybody's trying to help each other. And that's not a perspective you get at big agency. They don't really talk about the founder community, but like everybody truly is. I can call other people that are members of those 12 or the people that we've helped launch, and everybody's trying to help everybody. So it's like, I get a call from somebody who says, hey, I just got 20 positions at this account. I don't have anybody to recruit it. It's like, oh, you should call this person because they recruit exactly that. And then you put two founders together and they're working deals out. So just the founder community itself has been amazing in that regard. And again, I know you experience that a lot, but it's just funny how you don't think about that.
I mean, I know when I was working in a big agency, I felt like I was in a bubble. Like I did not know what happened in the recruiting world outside of there.
Yeah.
I think I joked with you about this. There's a lot of people that find my podcast at a big agency when they're about 6 months away from leaving. I mean, like they did a good job, like with the training, and that's, if you want a good laugh, like I remember the sales conferences that this large agency had, and that's one of the reasons why I structured the summits the way I have, where we're all by ourselves. We don't have a company there to pump us up. So let's bring together some people and we almost to pump ourselves up.
Yeah. And those things are crucial. Those things build buy-in. They get you fired up. We always call it drinking the Kool-Aid or filling up with gas. And, you do need that. You do need that, whether you're agency or owner or anything in between. You do need an external, even if you're intrinsically motivated, you do need an external, kick every once in a while just to get you gas back up.
So we've covered a lot. Before we jump over to the quickfire questions, is there anything else that you want to share about like jumping out and flying on your own and building the boat on the way down or building the plane on the way down?
I would just say I've had a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun doing it. And if you're one of those people who maybe you're feeling stagnant, again, you do have to have a risk tolerance. You do have to have some savings built up just in case, like plan accordingly, do everything above board. But it has been so much fun. I've learned more over the past 2 years than I did probably in the previous 5. And it's been great. So if you're sitting there wondering, like, is now the time? It probably is, and just plan accordingly.
Okay. Before the quickfire questions, you mentioned the word savings. What are your thoughts on runaway?
It really depends. Mine was longer doing this because of how cold I went into this entire process. So it took me about 4 months to start generating income. You could definitely speed that up. But I would say the plan for you should be to get a revenue driving client as quickly as possible. If you do that, I would say still plan for 3 to 6 months. I would just plan. But the reality is, like, if you do it accordingly and you get off the ground, the people that should leave and launch know what they're doing. It's not so risky that it's like you're doing it here. You're already doing the job. It's not like you're going to engineer a med device product. So you should be able, if you can just replicate that, to get off the ground running. You just got to have a client. So if you can do that, I would say within a month or two, but I'd plan for 3 to 6.
Okay. 3 to 6. Awesome. Quick fire questions. You've worked with a lot of recruiters. Like you've hired and trained a lot of recruiters, and you've got a chance to see what has worked, what hasn't worked, what dumb things recruiters have done, and the people that have excelled in their career. If you had a brand new recruiter that called you up and wanted to sit down for a quick 15-minute chat and they asked you the question, what's the number one piece of advice that you can tell me to have a successful career in this space, in this industry? What would you say?
I had a coach back in the day that said, get 3% better every day. I would just employ that mindset. And it's twofold. One, it creates a mindset of self-development. You have to be able to self-develop yourself. And how this looks in practice, and I actually told my team this as they would come in, is just work on one thing per week. Work on one small thing per week that you can then compound upon. I remember working on my voicemails. How do they sound? Try different things. Intentional practice is probably what you could call this, but what's your callback ratio? Is it 0? Try to switch it up a little bit. And then the next week, go to something else. Maybe it's call sheet organization. I don't know. But just do one thing per week, do it all week long, and then compound on that. Take a 3% better approach. And by the end of a year, by the end of 2 years, you're doing some expert level stuff, whether you know it or not. So I would just employ that approach to your career, and your career's in your hands. So if you can focus on yourself and get better, then you'll be fine.
Okay. The same question, but for somebody that's been around the block, the 10 to 20 year recruiter, they hit you up and they're just like, hey, been doing this for a while. What advice would you give an old dog?
I think for somebody who's been around for a while, I think I'd say try something new each week. It's almost the same practice, but it's a little different. If 15 years of success, you're doing a lot of really good things. And the game is changing. Every single week, the game is changing. And if you're not picking up on new tools out there, automated messaging, different types of AI, I know that's a big buzzword, but like you could be getting a little left in the dust in the next 5 to 10. So I would say if you have a process that's working, great, keep employing that. And let's introduce some new tools into your tool belt as you go, just so you're staying current on the industry.
And the tools are changing so fast. Right before our call, I just sat down with Rich Rosen, which is one of my good friends in Pinnacle Society. And he literally was just like, hey, check out this tool, check out this tool, check out this tool. We did a 30-minute call looking, I think, at 17 different recruiting tools that just came out.
Yep. Yeah, it's hard to keep. Yeah, I just got a text yesterday about this new thing, and I'm going to get to it, but it's like it's hard to keep it all straight.
Okay, so for you, or since we're talking about tools, is there a tool that's been an absolute game changer for you? It doesn't have to be recruiting related, but just overall.
I take a pretty old school approach when it comes to this, like prospecting, get it all in a system, and really it is heavy phone work. So, but I do think Dripify is a really cool tool. I don't go completely nuts on the campaigns, but I write them just like I would write a normal thing. And that has saved me so much time when making LinkedIn connections and follow-up messages. And again, to me, that being able to automate just something like that kind of task is a game changer for somebody starting off. So if you haven't looked into automated messaging, Source Whale, I know is another one. Take a look at platforms like that.
Awesome. What is one of the biggest challenges or failures that you had to work through?
There's no one particular one again, but it's like over a 16-year career in recruiting, you have failures all the time. You have candidates not accept, you have clients that don't work out. And I think it really is just like, you have to have a mindset to just keep going and not make excuses. And if you get hung up on, is it that person, or is it like, can you take any sort of external thing that happens and turn it into implied feedback for you and get a little better? So I think like the whole game is filled with pitfalls. So it's just having the mindset to turn those things into implied feedback and get better.
Mm. And, picture this. You get the opportunity to go back in time, grab a beer with yourself or maybe a cup of coffee, like a month into your recruiting career. What would you tell yourself?
I would say do the same thing that I did. This is what you do, but then cut it off at like once you get to the point where you're an expert in your field, that's when you need to make a decision on if you should do what I did or not. If I have anything that I would tell myself is do this, but do it sooner. And then here's why. So to me, it's like work really, really hard, get really, really good, give back to your team, give back to your company as much as you can. Obviously, get compensated to the extent that you can. That's what I tell myself is just like, once you get to the point where you're feeling stuck, it's okay to look external and it's okay to look at what else is out there in the industry. Because for too long, I was in that bubble.
I mean, it's a good bubble. It's a happy bubble.
Great bubble. Yep.
And, with all the recruiters that you've trained, and I'm guessing because you've helped kick off some offices, you've also had to train salespeople and promote salespeople. You've had a lot of conversations with these people, good, bad, ugly, probably had to get rid of people. You've helped hire recruiters. You probably also get a lot of questions of how does business development work? What kind of voicemail do I need? How do I do this? Throughout all this 15, 16 years, and on top of that, now you're working with founders getting started for the recruiting companies. Is there a question that you wish people would ask you, but they never really do?
I don't know if I wish they would ask me, but I think the question they don't ask me or ask other founders is like, is it worth it? Is it worth it to leave my comfortable corporate job to jump out of the plane and build it on the way down? Is it worth it? I get calls frequently where it's like, how is it going? And what they're implying is, I think like, is it worth it? But it's never explicitly asked. It's just like, is it going well enough for me to have the same thought process? And the answer is obviously, it depends, but probably yes.
And when you say it was worth it for you,
of course, in every aspect of life, it was worth it. Just the family life alone. I know we haven't hit on this, but we had our third child right after we launched this. We found out, my wife and I, that we were pregnant, like right after the launch. And I had spent 14 years, running an office, being gone a lot. And it's been so nice to get time back with my kids. They're all young. And it's been so nice. And then from a compensation standpoint, it's gone better. Not that it's all about that, but people wonder about that. It's gone better. So like the home life is better. The professional life is better. It's been more fun. I've learned a lot more. So is it worth it for me? Yeah. On every aspect, it has been. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm just very passionate about doing the whole thing, which is also where Catalyst comes into play. I wouldn't tell people to do this if I didn't think it was worth it. So it definitely is.
Awesome. Because, it's one of the things that I've seen out there in the recruiting spaces. Of course, I live in another bubble now of the Elite Recruiter podcast where I'm sitting there talking to people that are just winning and crushing it. But then there's a lot of things where you hear about the market and you hear about this. And, what was that phrase that you said that a few minutes ago? Quote unquote, nobody's hiring. Mm-hmm. You got to go figure out who is hiring.
Right.
So we've covered a lot and we've really talked about, is it worth staying where you are? And for a lot of people, absolutely. Is it worth going to a smaller company? For a lot of people, absolutely. Is it worth it to jump out on your own? Absolutely too. So 2 things before I let you go. First of all, if somebody wants to follow you, how do they go about doing that?
LinkedIn, just send me a message or shoot me a connection on LinkedIn. I'm on there, Zack Cress. That's probably the best way. And then if you want to get in contact, just shoot me a note. I'm on it all the time, as I'm sure most of listeners are. So that's probably the best way to get in contact with me. And then we can strike up a conversation from there.
Okay. And before I let you go, is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, I think just from a catalyst standpoint, just if this was hitting home with you, if you've been wherever you're at for 5, 10, 15 years and you feel like you're in a good spot that you can branch off, again, this is a service that I wish I had when we were launching this firm. So essentially what it is a complete back office for you. So anything legal, logo, website, compliance, bookkeeping, like we talked about, that's all handled for you. So if you're thinking about launching, but you're just a little overwhelmed with the process, we can get you up and running within, quick launch we can get you legal within a week or 2, and then fully, website design and all that within a couple months. So if you're like, again, keep it above board, but if you have a friend that is a manager somewhere and is hiring and you're like, maybe I should take a crack at it, maybe it's the time, it might be. So get in contact with us and we'd love to talk.
Well, Zach, I'm glad that you made the jump yourself because, actually looking back on my timeline, I think it took me almost the same amount of years to make the jump into my own firm. And it has been absolutely worth it. But like I said, I have good friends. They're just crushing it at a firm and they're happy as a clam and they don't want to deal with the headaches that I have to deal with. So that way they could just focus on recruiting. So here's the thing. The beautiful thing about recruiting is you could find a path that works for you. It's there. There's so much opportunity in our world. So for you guys, I want you to absolutely crush it. Make 2025 a year that you make your dreams happen. Let's go get it, guys.
Thanks, Ben. And thanks for everything you do for the industry.
Thank you.
Admin is a massive waste of time. That's why there's Atlas, the AI first recruitment platform built for modern agencies. It doesn't only track resumes and calls. It remembers everything, every email, every interview, every conversation, instantly searchable, always available. And now it's entering a whole new era. With Atlas 2.0, you can ask anything and it delivers. With Magic Search, you speak and it listens. It finds the right candidates using real conversations, not simply looking for keywords. Atlas 2.0 also makes business development easier than ever. With opportunities, you can track, manage, and grow client relationships powered by generative AI and built right into your workflow. Need insights? Custom dashboards give you total visibility over your pipeline. And that's not theory. Atlas customers have reported up to 41% EBITDA growth and an 85% increase in monthly billings after adopting the platform. No admin, no silos, no lost info, nothing but faster shortlists, better hires, and more time to focus on what actually drives revenue. Atlas is your personal AI partner for modern recruiting. Don't miss the future of recruitment. Get started with Atlas today and unlock your exclusive listener offer at recruitwithatlas.com.